please.
Councilman Palakis, Mr. Newman, Mr. Chapin, Ms. Powell,
Here.
Mr. Dennis,
Here.
Ms. Tuggle,
Here.
Ms. Nazak,
Here.
Chairman Mayara.
Here. Okay, next we pass to the approval of the minute for September 18, 2017.
I make a motion we approve the minutes as written.
Ms. Powell has a first motion.
I second.
We have a second. All four say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion passed. And we have the staff report, please.
That would typically be if we had code or police representatives here. We do not.
Okay, not a problem. Mr. Burgood, we have development project update, please.
I do not have any updates at this time. There's a lot of information that has been in the newspaper of late, and I can tell you that the Beachside committee for the county had met last month and is going to meet again Monday in this very room this Monday on the what is that, the 16th?
Yes.
So they'll be here. And the only other item is that we did have the News Journal invitation that happened out on the Beachside. So somebody else will probably speak to that.
Yeah,
because I was not there and I cannot speak to it. Okay.
What time is the meeting on Monday?
5:30.
5:30.
Yes.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
We have any public comment, please? You filling it up? Okay. Go ahead, please. Yeah, you go ahead, please fill it up. Yeah, you can go ahead, please. Please go ahead. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Miss Belinda Haynes. I live at 464 North Charles Street.
Okay.
A candidate for Zone 3. I've been to several of your meetings and the one on at the Ocean Center. And there are a lot of concerns. I know about the beach. I came here when I was 6 months old, like I said before. It doesn't matter to me whether it's Main Street or the mainland or Beachside. All of it has to be straightened out. And I commend the boards for what they do, because actually I think you guys should get paid, because you guys put in a lot of time and effort. But as I was going this weekend, me and my daughter, we were going, and she lives from out of town, and we were going on Beachside. Like the community says, there's a problem with lighting. There was no light at all. And, you know, when I brought my business to Daytona, I was a AmeriCorps Visitor leader. I was chosen out of thousands to come here to make a difference. And I stayed because I was asked to stay by community leaders, and I'm a community activist. It doesn't matter where I live. Like I told my daughter, matter of fact, she want me to move on Beachside. But it doesn't matter where we live in Daytona. We all got to work together. That's the problem. And the big wigs that making the big money, they need to think about this city instead of their pocket. I'm serious, because it's becoming a real problem. We done got to the place now where they don't even want to come to the board meetings anymore. Last night, I think it was 4 of us in the room, like it is tonight. We have to get the public more interested. It's not you guys. It's those that make the big bucks. They said the residents are complaining all over that every time they go to voice their opinion, they get knocked down. That has got to stop. And that's how I see it. It doesn't matter. To me, really, I feel, and I'm just going to seriously tell you, and I'm going to sit down. To me, really, I'm running to make a difference. Whether it's on Beachside or the mainland, it doesn't bother me. When my business came here, I put in a 1 year of service free to the community. Do you hear me? Yes. That cost my family a ton. It doesn't matter, because I have to live here. My grandchildren, I have a grandchild that's grown here. So it doesn't matter who win, as long as that one person make a difference. That's all I care about. I really, to me, I'm about getting the job done. It doesn't matter who win in my zone, but my zone has got to be better than what it is now. Okay? And that's all I'm asking you guys. Let's work on the Beachside, because I really, my son-in-law is a very huge person in FedEx. He's like a VP. And I was very embarrassed to bring my son-in-law on Main Street. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, my son-in-law said, Mom, it's okay, it's in every town. But if the city of Edenville, and I know y'all know where that is, it's Edenville is right before Maitland. Mm-hmm. The city of Edenville had a crooked mayor. They got him out of there. And the city of Edenville it's one street. You go in and you go out. But that town, the citizens got together, they made a difference. They redid almost the whole town. Mm-hmm. Especially the main part where they have their parades and everything. I want to see a change. I want to see where my tax dollars are going. I want to see where my business tax dollars are going. Because I pay a high price. And that's all I want to say. And I want to thank you guys so much for listening to me today.
And thank you very much for your
Thank you.
comment. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. So if you're up next, go ahead, please.
My name is Vern Weatherholtz. I live at 3 Granville Circle. Beachside, ever since the meeting the other night, I've went around and through the different neighborhoods. Some of the things that I think that the city needs to address, the city manager needs to address, is it was talked about lighting. Lighting is very vague. There's a lot of lighting that's out and a lot of lighting that needs maintenance. Lights are out. Signage, street signage, needs to have more maintenance on it, properly put up, the right size, the right height. Grass in the sidewalks and in the curbs. When you go through, if you need to take pride in ownership. They always say that the residents should take care of it. But if the resident doesn't, it's in the city right away, and it's the city's obligation and their job to make sure that it's taken care of. Street cleaning, another issue. Most people, or a lot of people in the city, as long as it's in the city limits, they think that the city is obligated to take care of the streets. But that's not right. We have a lot of state, county roads running through the city. But it's up to the city to make sure that they notify the people that are required to do the maintenance on it to get it done. And if they are slow, then I think that it's the city's responsibility to take some action to take care of it. Beachside. As you all know, that I'm on the Code Enforcement Board, and we had a discussion before the meeting. But I drove through. I'm also a licensed general contractor. I do know the code because I was a building official in North Miami. The things that you see on Beachside, it's mostly an area that the code violations, they need to be, code enforcement is a tough issue, as we were talking earlier. Code enforcement is mostly a safety issue. It's not complaint driven. It's not supposed to be. The city is, the obligation of the city manager is to make sure that each division in the city has a proper staff that needs to take care of it. The city manager's obligation is to make sure all of the officers know what their duties are. It comes under a job description. I know I've made numerous ones, and so that the officers are qualified which they all have a standard that they have to have to be an officer and to make sure that they know their job. It can't be all complaint driven. Most of the code enforcement in the city is complaint driven. I think that needs to be looked at as far as the inner city government, and to make sure that the code is being applied. You hear the issues on Beachside especially. If we want to make Main Street a better place, you can't go out and say, well, I don't want bike week, I don't want special events. That's not the way to go about it. What you should be able to do is make the surrounding areas, livable, and you want to make sure that that'll entice business to come in. The city, they want to, it's their job to make sure that it's a hospitable area for a business to come in and want to go in. Business, he's there for one thing. He's to make it be profitable. And if he can't, it's not going to survive. But the surrounding area, the core of the area there, you have to take a look at it. And that means code enforcement. I heard a comment overzealous. Code enforcement. There's no such thing. If there's a code that is broken, it's up to the city's responsibility to take care of, or to make sure that it is taken care of. But I also think it's the city's obligation to help people, not just fine them and enforce it. If the code enforcement officer, the building official, to go in and to give advice, anything to help the community. That's what city employees' job is. It's not only to do the daily city business, but it's to help the residents. And I don't know whether we've gotten away from it or, it's just not being done. And those are some of the things, just a few of the things that I like to talk about it, and that'll be my platform in running for City Commission.
Well, thank you very much, Vern. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of things that you've said I agree with. We're going to pass to the board comments, and I'm sure people have plenty to say about this. Not only about, because it's been the subject for a while, about Beachside, about Main Street, but I want to make sure something. People keep talking about lighting. Okay, we all know that lighting on A1A is not the responsibility of the city.
Right.
It's the state. A1A is a state road. The meeting at the Ocean Center, there was an issue about the lighting, and then afterwards, I made some comments to the board that's supposed to meet here tomorrow about making or the county or some kind to. The last time that the lights were changed on A1A is when they did the pavers. And I think that must have been at least 18 years ago. And you made a comment about most of the lights don't work. Yeah, you're right. I got businesses on A1A, and believe me, they don't. And it takes a long time before they get fixed. But we have to remember that it's the state. We keep pointing the finger at the city. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Berger, please.
Well, I might just clarify one thing on A1A, because there is a little bit of a difference there on those lower lights.
Yes.
These are the decorative lights.
Yes.
They actually are a responsibility of the city.
Yes,
to
I'm talking about
maintain
the
and
big
light.
ones.
But the bigger ones are the responsibility of Florida Power and Light.
Yes.
It's on a state road.
Yeah.
But that's their responsibility.
But
And the state and the city have some shared responsibility on those lit signs.
Yes.
That are over there too, which we've got a lot of damage from the hurricanes.
There you go.
And some of the things, just to point out, is all those lower lights. We lost a lot of those in Irma, and so that's part of the issue. We've also lost transformers. This is downtown too. We've some of that was from where we were just losing some of our panels and there's some more work that they're doing on some of those. So I know some of that's just related to the infrastructure, not necessarily to those lights that are above,
Yes.
where you see a whole street, block, or cluster of them. So those are the things that they're attacking now. We kind of shifted everybody downtown for the hurricane rally a couple weeks ago, and to tackle what was a very serious problem with the electric panels there. And those were ours. Even though Florida Power and Light has some responsibilities, the city's electricians have to get in there and deal with a number of these panels that were underwater. So just giving you sort of an overview of some of the things going on with our lighting.
But just to make a comment about what you said,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
the lower ones is the responsibility of the city.
Yes.
Not a problem. Prior hurricane, not Matthews, I can tell you for a fact it took a long time. It doesn't matter if it's FPNL, city, state, county, federal government, doesn't matter who it was. It took a long time to repair the big ones and the small ones. So, we always point the finger, but we have to understand that lighting is a big issue, and it don't matter if it's on Main Street, doesn't matter if it's on Seabreeze, doesn't matter where it is. Who do we point the finger? I don't think we should put the finger. I think the state has a big responsibility, because they're the one that, when they decided to do those landscaping and the palm trees and everything else, a lot of people were complaining. It was not the city that removed them. It was the state that took them off. It was the state that came out, and the sidewalk were too small for the wheelchair. I don't know if everybody remembered when the landscaping was done on A1A, the pavers on the four corners, the sidewalks were smaller. They put palm trees right in the middle of the sidewalk. There was no wheelchairs that can come by. And we all complained, all the business people. We saw all signed papers, and it was not to the city, it was to the state. And the state came and took care of them. So, we have to somehow, I'm sure they're going to come up to more at the meeting, because I made some comment to the people that are going to be sitting here tomorrow about going somehow, some way to the county or to the state and says, we have the oldest lights on A1A. We have some old lights. I know the city has the small ones, but I'm talking about the big ones. And I think if you come to look at some other communities that are smaller than us and contribute less than us to the state, they have LEDs. Just to let you know, Mr. Berger, they have LEDs. We still on the yellow lights on the streets. And the perfect example, you drive on Ocean Avenue at night, my friend, and you see that there's some serious, But anyway, I'll bring back to the board comments, if Spy, you want to start?
Start with me?
Please, go ahead, please. Mr. Newman is not here, so please.
Okay. I almost gave my name and address. I don't have to do
you
that.
did?
Amy Pyle, 136 South Grandview. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Haynes for speaking up, because she's absolutely right. She said something that I've been kind of whining about for a while, is that we only have a few people sometimes at these board meetings, and it's up to us to remind people people are home, they're cooking dinner for their families and all that. A lot of them can't make it, so it's up to us to kind of represent and get up here and speak on their behalf, and also to listen on their behalf and help, communicate that back and remind people they can watch it on TV at home. Just, I don't know if there's like a live feed, but it is hard to get people involved and concerned. So we, those of us that are up here, they're kind of dependent on us in a way, because they don't have time to deal with it sometimes. So we have a big responsibility. About code enforcement, I know that Mr. Weatherholtz mentioned safety. There's a second layer in a redevelopment area about appearance. Some violations are violations of the redevelopment standards or codes. I don't know how you put it, but like, for example, if somebody painted their house, like some horrible shade of orange, it didn't, wasn't the redevelopment department's idea of what's good for the neighborhood, that could be a violation, correct?
That's correct. Most people don't realize that you have to get written permission in a redevelopment area to paint your house.
Right.
So some of these, the painting shows up after the fact, and unfortunately, if you use a very fluorescent color, we may be down there and talking to you. And usually I'll get the call from someone else before we might see it and say, what the heck just happened? And we don't have a color palette that we use. But there is, if you look in the code, you'd find a place in there that talks about some of our arterial streets throughout the city, where we do have some provisions for the intensity and the color, so it doesn't get out of hand. Mm-hmm. And so it's just about reasonableness. When it's unreasonable, it's one of those things where you know it when you see it. We do have a standard about having just so many colors. On the other hand, there are, particularly in a beachside, more color is actually considered a good thing on a lot of coastal communities. Also considered that way when you look at, if you go to Sherwin-Williams and you look at the brochure, you'll see that they have their own for historic buildings. And we have a lot of those traditional old historic buildings that kind of came to us from the Midwest that are planted here in our historic districts, which are a whole variety of homes, not just one kind of architecture. And they also come with a number of colors that they might have, shades of color. So you'll see some of that. So we try to be understanding of what we're dealing with. It has a lot to do with the architecture and the type of building that's there.
Right. Well, the point that I was making was that sometimes when we report something, it's in the redevelopment area, we should not only be able to expect safe buildings, but we should be able to expect a certain level of appearance, to contribute to the redevelopment area. I spoke this morning I was at a local government committee meeting at the chamber, and I met someone you might know, Doug Daniels. I'd never spoken with him before, but he mentioned something to me that I've heard before, that regarding code enforcement, I guess he had read the article that I was quoted in this morning where I spoke about Mr. Aberman's building, and that I was baffled that a building in this condition would have been granted a rental inspection approval. It's right across the street from me, and I was a little bit, anyway, you all read the article. So he said that in, I want to say, South Daytona and Port Orange, he's represented people that have come before the code board with fines, that want these fines reduced or whatever. And he said, and they'll say, they go in and they say, well, the building's been repaired and everything's been fixed, so we want you to take this lien off. And they say no. They say no. But in Daytona Beach, you'll get a reduction. For example, it didn't stay on the agenda, but last Wednesday, I don't know if anybody noticed, there was an item that staff recommended on the city commission agenda. There was a $15,000 lien placed on a property by the code board, and then the code board had also done a review because it had been appealed, and they decided to keep the $15,000 lien on there. And then it came up on a city commission agenda as if the city commission was going to override what the code enforcement board had decided. And it was pulled from the consent agenda before it was voted on. And but I would have spoken on that, but that's just the kind of thing that we're seeing in Daytona Beach that I think Mr. Weatherholtz is speaking to, that we need to have a little more bite, and as soon as people realize they're not going to get away with this kind of thing, we'll find stuff getting cleaned up a lot sooner. And safety, appearance, toughening up on that a little bit. And as far as the lighting situation, I think when people, they're not always pointing fingers at the city when they say our lights, the street is dark. They need to know who to go to, and the first entity that they go to is the city, and the city shouldn't have to say to them, "Oh, well, go over there." It would be good to have an advocate at the city that was in contact with FPL that that could tell that person, well, we've already reported the lights between this, and this street, or that's because a transformer blew after Irma and it was coming out. People want that information, and they deserve to have that information. And the businesses on A1A that are in the dark, we walked back from Ocean Walk movie theater in the dark, pretty much. I mean, of course, there was a little bit of light, but you're looking and you look all the way down the street.
Yes.
Now I understand why. But there was no public information about why that that had happened. So, you have a lot of speculation, and people point and they don't know where they're pointing at. The lighting on Main Street was the discussion at the town hall. It had nothing to do with, they might have mentioned the lights on A1A, but the lighting on Main Street needs to be brightened up, and I do believe that there is a plan. Mr. Morris had mentioned that they're looking at the lights, what they're using on Granada, to see if they can brighten them up. Big John's suggestion was just put 400-watt bulbs in there, and it would change the whole, because right now they're using 70-watt bulbs or something like that. So that is something that can easily, that's something easily that can be changed, and people need that on, they need, well, maybe not 400, but they need brightening up of the lights. And he also said that there's going to be a color palette review, which made me very happy. So now, that was just about what we had just talked about, but I have a couple of buildings in the redevelopment area that I would like to ask if Mr. Berger has any kind of update on, and I would have asked a code officer here, but I'm not sure they would have it either. 128 South Wild Olive. Are you familiar with it at all? It's a residence.
I believe isn't that the one that's
It's the one with the
legal matter?
magistrate.
Is it slated for demolition yet, I guess is my question. Or foreclosure or anything?
Wild Olive is actually pending litigation for foreclosure.
Okay. All right. Because I have neighbors ask about that all the time. That's right across the street.
I'm straight across the street. I'm just wondering and when I had inquired, I said the timeline could go 2 to 3 years. And so, I'll get to that, but I know that's an issue.
Okay. It is, and this is another case where I'll cite something I learned at the county Beachside Redevelopment Board, was that in Ormond Beach, they're not only proactive with their code enforcement, but they will take action and place liens, for expenses. And I know that gets expensive, and nobody wants to spend taxpayer dollars demolishing buildings. But there are times, I think, when that's going to be necessary. And personally, I would be in favor of looking at sometimes there needs to be action because our neighborhoods are suffering. 150 South Coates has been purchased by Avista, along with the large vacant lot on Grandview. 150 South Coates has been condemned, and it's unlivable. There's spray paint signs all over it. It's been like that for at least a year in the, as far as the unlivable nature of it, and a couple of years prior to that, it's at least looked that bad. So now that Avista has purchased it, I think that happened maybe in May or April, I'm wondering why it's still standing. Do you have any information on when Avista is going to clean up that property?
I don't, but the sooner the better. This is clearly if the good news is that they've acquired that property. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly when they did that, but now that they've taken that, we would like to see that come down, and I think that's certainly the intent.
Would you like me to give them a call?
Yeah, you can call them.
Do you have his number?
I don't have it. Mr. Morris can provide that information.
Because I will call. So I can call the owner and ask when he's going to have that building demolished. Because
we'll do that as well. I don't want to. We can call him and do that, and so that's something we can do. And
I was going to try to bring pictures tonight, but I didn't have my 48-hour window to scan my photos. But I wanted you to see how bad it looks, and there's a situation with the house right next door where a lot of people from a drug house that was shut down are now congregating behind And it just, that building there gives them such a nice little nook and cranny that I'd really like to see it come down.
Okay.
So, and then this is going to come before the code board tomorrow. So I know you. I'm not even. I don't know. Can I discuss something in front of you? You don't. I'm not asking you to comment on it, but the church on the corner of Fifth Avenue that's called the Miracle Center has extensive damage that's been there since Matthew. I did put a report in on the damage on the roof after Matthew, or like a long time after Matthew, and somebody came out, but they looked at the building, they didn't look at the roof, so it was marked compliant. And there was never the roof was never fixed. So now it's gotten worse after Irma. So the roof, and I also, I'd like to mention that there are other violations on that building that are not on the the code board. Anyway, my point of bringing it up here is that in a redevelopment area, we've talked about this, Reed, and I know Marcia and I have had this conversation prior to us being on the board. But I wanted to bring it up here so we can understand how a congregate meal facility is not permitted anywhere in a redevelopment zone. I have been told that because this is a church, it is grandfathered in as a congregate meal facility. Right now, that is the only thing it's being used for, and it is also being occupied during biker events as people come and actually live in this building and host meals, breakfast, and dinners throughout the entire event.
And use the toilet, the plumbing,
Yeah,
and everything else. Yeah,
right, they're living in it. It becomes a place of residence, which, in my mind, should not be allowed in any shape or form. It hurts our neighborhood. It hurts the redevelopment area. It's not being used as a church. God bless them. I have nothing against churches. Yeah. I think that if I were to look at it and say, I want to, if there was a church there that took the responsibility to keep the building up to standards, to supervise operations, to have appropriate parking for their building, maybe there's somewhere there that it would be okay to call it grandfathered in. But as it stands now, I think somebody needs to put their foot down and make sure they do not use this as a clubhouse during Biketoberfest.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
About was that somebody on our staff that said it was grandfathered? Can you help me with that one?
It's probably in an email somewhere. I feel like we went back and forth, and it might have been the attorney, maybe when Kelly White and I met with
It wouldn't
Robert.
come from me, because I
Okay.
can tell you, when it comes to a congregate meal facility or grandfathering, I'm not aware of anything like that. What I can tell you is the claim is it's being used as a church. Mm-hmm. There's been some evidence that actually happens. There's some worship services. And I think the other part of that's a concern that I'm hearing is this residential part that you've mentioned. And certainly if there's residential going on in something that has been used for a place of worship and now it's residential, there's another concern about what might be going on here. But,
well, if I have not copied you on all those emails that I sent, I can't believe it. But if I have not and you are not aware of it, then I'm
aware
glad I'm glad I brought it up.
Yes, thank you.
So
I got that email today. The email that you sent on these addresses yesterday.
Okay. All right. And that, I think I had pictures of that one in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for your patience, everyone.
Thank you. Please.
It's nice to have the luxury to be able to proactively bring some things up in our comments. And a lot of these issues are kind of dovetailing. One example of something I see dovetailing, so we have this character who has something like 29 houses on the beachside, many of which sit empty, which it's really pretty galling, because there's a population I represent here, which is a population of renters who work locally. And we actually have a real housing crunch. Every time somebody renovates an apartment, people looking for apartments are right on it saying, hey, is this apartment going to come free? Is this apartment going to... It's really a problem. I mean, I think our neighborhood's unique because there are a lot of homes that are just vacation homes. They're not necessarily lived in year-round, and that's going to create pressure. I mean, it's, we don't have that much space to start with, and we don't have that many apartment buildings, and then some of the apartment buildings get dilapidated and get purchased and knocked down and stuff. So we actually have a housing constraint. There's not really any easy solutions, but I've been talking with people who also work locally. We've just been chatting, like what are some solutions. We're even talking about developing an app and building relationships of trust with some of these absentee owners and possibly developing some sort of caretaker system. And that could be to the benefit of our neighborhoods. Another thing that I want to bring up, we were talking last time about the fins up, what does that think that club that Land Shark. So that brought up the issue for me of, hey, a corporate entity can locate somewhere and they can be required to modify their signage and landscaping to be in keeping with an area. Like, for example, if you wanted to put a McDonald's on Nantucket, I mean, I don't know if there really is one, but if you wanted to put one there, it would probably have to look like a 17th century tavern, and the golden arch part would be about as big as the lid of this bottle. But I bring that up because we're going to be having some more development right on the beach, and it's a really good opportunity for us to decide, like, what do we want to say about landscaping requirements? Are there special beachy landscaping requirements? Is there a requirement for a certain percentage of dune grass rather than, mowed turf grass, more clumpy vegetation? I don't know. Do you read? Is there stricter requirements on the beach already for that?
On the beach itself.
Yeah. If you're developing like a hotel right on the beach or something like this, these Avista guys that are developing a big Marriott, are they going to have any more? Is there any encouragement for them to make it a little more beachy landscaping?
Well, that's part of the process as it comes through, and we're given the opportunity to have some input, starting with this board.
Okay. Yeah.
Those kinds of issues can be discussed going forward.
That's good. Yeah. I like that because, the beach is beautiful. And I actually I was looking again at some drawings of the Land Shark, and I saw how they had sand all around it. And I was, oh, yeah, cool. That's very beachy. What else did I want to bring up? I guess, yeah. So developing for residents and developing for livability. I'm glad you mentioned that, Vern. It's been coming up a lot in these different meetings. I know there's an RFP process. Like, for example, the Avista got chosen to develop this Marriott. Now, before or in parallel with the RFP process, is there also a process whereby we could ask residents, what are some things that you guys would like to see here? Is there a way to incorporate resident feedback right into that process? Like, what if residents had said, we'd like to see a unique hotel with a rooftop garden? Is there a way to have a dialogue about that kind of thing?
Well, there's always the opportunity to have the dialogue. The forums that we have currently, whether they're the neighborhood groups and then people conveying that information to the elected officials or to this body, certainly have that way to feed back. And when we did the E-zone, we had neighborhood meetings there. And then when Avista, if they go through a process here to build, or anybody else, the first thing they're required to do in the case of doing a rezoning is to have neighborhood meetings.
And so that'll be at some later point.
Prior to coming here.
Prior
So,
to coming here. Okay.
Prior to coming here, that has to
Okay.
happen. So,
All right, I forgot the order of
uh,
that. Okay, good.
Right.
Good.
So it's
Okay,
important
good.
for those who are getting those notices to be there, and also neighborhood groups that some of you are a part of also are getting those notices as well,
Right.
so
Okay.
that can use that email system or the web or
Yeah.
whatever to contact
Cool.
people.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if there was something else, like when you guys put out an RFP, if I don't know if any places do this, put out also a call for emailed suggestions from residents, like what would you all like to see? Or take a poll or something.
Yeah,
Something that crossed my
I'm
mind.
not aware of that
No.
part happening in advance of the RFP.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's all. Thank you all very
You're
much.
welcome. Just to answer a couple of questions, I just want to mention something. When a blueprints come to the city, there's an X amount of palm trees that have to go on the property.
Palm trees specifically.
Have to. Go ahead, please.
No, and the landscapes are
Yes.
quite detailed.
Exactly. Believe me, I put up buildings on A1A, and believe me, when it comes to landscaping, they're really obviously there's only certain kind of landscaping you can put on Beachside because of salt water.
Yeah.
But there's every X amount of distance you have to put palm trees in between. You have to put. Believe me, they're very, very. And believe me, the city's been working many, many years to try to find the right plants.
Yeah.
When there was open lots, we tried to find different kind of landscaping to put up just to cover the, land cover,
Yeah.
and it doesn't last. But to your point, yes, there is a regulation of X amount of landscaping when it comes to new projects. Like the Land Shark.
Yeah.
I haven't seen their landscaping plans, but there is X amount of that they have to put out. Just to let
Thank you.
I went through the process. That's why I
Yeah,
said that. Go ahead,
yeah.
please. I'm sorry.
Lighting. Mr. Berger, I think there should be some sort of quantitative, the light meter must read so many whatever in this kind of neighborhood. Do we have any of those kind of rules? Or because everything the public seems to be talking about are subjective. I think it's too dark. It's not bright enough. Are there lighting science, if you will?
The standards for lighting, how many lumens you put out on the street. I don't know the answer to the public works side. What they do in the street. I've got to think that from traffic safety, there are standards already, and those are part of design standards. For vehicle traffic, I think the question becomes when you're talking about the standard on the sidewalk where we see shadows. If you walk down some of these streets, people are walking, there may be some light, but it's not reaching far enough. And the great thing about LEDs is they can be designed to be directional, go along that sidewalk and not necessarily go where you don't want the light. And so it's a
Like
great
my bedroom
technology.
window.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're hoping that we'll see everything's going to move over to the LED.
But it would
this
seem like
point.
if we don't, we should have standards that we say we just drive down the street and here's a dark spot. I mean, and because lights do wear down, not out, but wear down. And it would seem like that would be a very simple yet definitive way of answering the question about how dark is it.
And we do put that in our land development code. So we do tell people who are building now today what light level they need to have in parking lots. So.
And as far as neighborhoods and all that, to me, I think pride in your home, your apartment, whatever, trumps any kind of rules or code enforcement. I mean, this summer, it seems like every week I'm out there mowing my grass, not because I want to, and not because my wife is going to, bend my ear, but I take pride in where I live, and I don't know how you can't legislate that. I recognize that, but boy, it'd be nice if we instilled pride, found a way to do that without rules and judgment. Is there any kind of registration for halfway houses in the neighborhoods? I mean, there's on Mobile, or I think Phoenix, anyway, one of those two streets in my neighborhood, people assumed that these properties were halfway houses, and when I looked into it, it wound up that there were code enforcement problems and not halfway houses. Is there a registry or a known?
I'll give you the answer to that, because I have great concerns about some of the changes that have been going on in our community that are related to, and other cities have this, like Delray Beach is probably the poster child right now for the concerns that they've raised up in Tallahassee. And this goes right up to the current issues we're having with the heroin, the brown heroin, and the opioids. And that issue relates back to the places that are supposed to be where you have halfway houses, sober houses, and they become the target, and the people going there become the target of those who are going to prey on your weaknesses, and we're seeing that becoming the problem. You're trying to help somebody, and you're creating these places where people travel from other states to come to sunny Florida, and everyone means well, but at the end of the day, you're basically getting into a place where then you go and you get a social service, or you participate in some way to get yourself better. And those sober homes are not the place you get better. That's the place you lay your head at night. And the problem is that when you talk about a registry, no, there is no registry that any of us are entitled to see, number one. And that's an issue in Tallahassee, and that's an issue in places like Delray Beach. Number two is that these sober houses, because of the way that the system works, you have federal state money that is subsidizing that whole system, and you have with that an issue where if somebody is going to come here and open one of these, you've got the person who has the house, the landlord, if you will, the property owner, is the beneficiary of that money coming in to underwrite their costs. I mean, you can't get much better deal than this. It's a given, and you get a market rate value for rent, and there may be other challenges, and I don't want to get into those, but for the people who might be participating. But the answer is we don't know where all those are, but we know that we see them. We know when people come in, we don't want those. Some of those in the community, and there's a real challenge here. And the last thing is that the state licenses more than 4 units, not the city. And so most of those, if they're set up as more of a rooming house or whatever, they're not under our umbrella. That could have been a single-family house, and suddenly you're going to have 5 bedrooms occupied with people, and we have no business being in there. There's code isn't going to get in there. This is going to be state inspectors who are going into all of these. So if you want to go to the state licensing, you'll see that there's a place there for transient and non-transient licensing, and that is has all the addresses of all the places that should be there for multifamily, and a lot of those will be sober homes and other types of halfway houses that we don't know what they do.
There's no business license. There's no rental inspection that the city of.
There is a business license that we require, but it's an automatic. I mean, it's not a.
Okay.
It's not one of those things where you go in and say we need to inspect all of this. If we see something on the outside, we can say something, but not on the inside. So that's where it is now.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Sorry, there's like, I don't want to say the address or anything like that, but there's a halfway house next to a friend of mine, an attorney. And believe me, he fought up and down. And there was nothing the city could have done, like Mr. Berger said, is state. And he's arguing with the state, but the state says, look, the guy has, his garage, he transferred him into apartments, and the city will not, if it was a city issue, they will not allow him to do that. But because of halfway, and they make plenty of money, believe me, those places make money, but it's a state thing. That's why. Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Please.
May I?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr.
I just
Berger.
have one thing. This is a follow-up from last week. I think you asked about how many parcels there were in Main Street.
Well, in
Yep.
both CRAs.
Yeah, and I didn't get the other one, South Atlantic, but I thought I'd give you what I did have, which was 906 parcels in the Main Street CRA.
Okay,
And I'll get you South Atlantic.
Okay. Because I want, percentage-wise, I want to see what the numbers on this report are,
Sure.
Yeah.
get an idea.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, I'm just going to follow up quickly, like on this idea of a business license. The city sets the city commissioners set the codes. They establish ordinances. They create what they need to meet the needs of the city. So do they legally have the option to alter some of the requirements or expectations on some of these types of business licenses, or some of the things that we're talking about where they could make them more restrictive or make more requirements, or something to the point that like they have to show that they've been inspected by the state and pass some kind of level of approval before they actually would get a license?
I'll just if you go in and look at the state's listing for registration for these multifamily units in our city or in any other city, you will see that they have an inspection report, and so it's there and it's available to all of us to see that. But it's a state inspector, so they have that provision. I think the concern is what's really going on, and how deeply are you getting into this and inspecting it, how frequently, and those are the concerns that are being raised by municipalities and their representatives going back to Tallahassee, and right now I don't see anything changing.
So basically, that needs more discussion between city and county leaders with representatives at the
I can
state
tell you
level.
that I was involved in some of the things that my friend was going through with the state, and like Mr. Berger says, when you apply for a halfway house, there's an inspector that comes in, looks at the place, signs off, and that's it. Now, unless there's complaints, major complaints to the state, then they come back and he just looks around, and believe me, my friend the attorney complained many times, and they come back, they look around, they don't see anything wrong, because most of the day, during the day, those people in the halfway house are out. They're either working or they're doing, to keep themselves. But it is a state where the state comes in, checks it out, approves it, and then the money starts coming in.
So I know that when it's 5 units or more, that's the state jurisdiction. So how do our nuisance abatement rules apply to something like that? If we know, let's say law enforcement's called out 3 times in a month because there's drug deals or prostitution or something illegal going on the property, then does that give us some kind of jurisdiction to penalize them or to do something to shut them down? I mean, does the nuisance abatement ordinances have any effect on that?
Generally, we can enforce our nuisance abatement, but that would require some more
Because
research.
I know that has come up with some of the properties over on the Beachside already that we've dealt with it through the neighborhood association, that there's been reports like nuisance abatement issues with multiple call-outs for law enforcement. And I know when we researched it, South Daytona had something that's pretty restrictive, like there's, just a few call-outs to a premises, and then there's some definite consequences and immediate action. And we had in our neighborhood association several meetings to kind of discuss if Daytona couldn't pursue something like that.
South Daytona has 3 per month,
Right.
and Daytona Beach has 12 per month, or so many hours of police in whatever time.
So, I mean, that's just because of kind of some of this background that we've already done in a couple of the neighborhood associations, just something that might be further discussion that we could have, or that we can talk to people or give us some direction, because I do think that might help move this in the right direction. If we could use our nuisance abatement rules.
I can make one more comment about the complaints and everything else. If I don't have it here, but if you see the file that my friend the attorney put together, when the state guy comes in, he shows him pictures. He says, "Look, see these guys? They're dealing. It's right next door. They're dealing. They're everything. It's a state. That's the problem. You have to deal with the state." Now, I don't know what's the authority of the city when it comes to when the state is involved. I know that he's been trying, and then you know what he says? He just gave up, and I mean, there's nothing was done. So.
We can enforce our ordinances as long as there's no preemption by the state.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I'm just throwing that out there because I know that's something that Beachside Neighborhood Watch and Santa had already been looking at because of issues with different kinds of rental properties. So maybe something that we can have further discussion on, because definitely there are some rules in place that might be useful to address if there are some real significant problems with specific properties. And that wasn't what I was going to talk about. So I'm going to backtrack, and actually Amy said some of the things I wanted to say. I don't want to sit up here as a board and bash other boards. So I don't want to bash code enforcement because they have a very difficult job. And I think that they're trying and they're doing for the most part, the best they can under a difficult situation because they're restricted by their abilities. My concern is when they pass things on for follow-up that their efforts are undermined. So what you were talking about, Amy, when they assess proper consequences for things, and then those consequences are wiped out like they never happened. And that really concerns me, and I know that concerns everybody that is in my area. Because, I'd be the one, if I didn't mow my lawn, someone will fine me $1,000, and I'm not going to hire an attorney to try and get out from under it. But because somebody's got millions of dollars, they can go in and they get to basically flaunt the law. And that's not the message that Daytona needs to be sending to anybody. So when we're talking about maybe you can't legislate pride, but you can legislate responsibility. And right now we're not really doing a good job of that. Again, I don't think it's necessarily the Code Enforcement Board, because you're like us. You have, you have guidelines and rules and things you have to follow, but you do the best you can, and then things get shot down, things get changed, and it's very inconsistent. And the rules are applied very arbitrarily. So I'm kind of wondering, because a lot of what we do in redevelopment is really tied to code enforcement, and because I'm new to this board, do we ever have like work sessions with other boards, or have any time when we can get together and brainstorm things, or I don't know, or work sessions when you have with some of the city commissioners to meet with some of the other boards?
I would make a suggestion that, like, for example, tomorrow there's a code enforcement board meeting. And sometimes they go on for a long time. But if you review the code enforcement board agenda every time it comes out, and it's once a month, correct? And see what's on there. I look for things in our neighborhood or things in this redevelopment area. And I look at it, and then I look at E-Track it. I see what has happened. I I might go and see the building myself. It's kind of like you have to self-educate. And then I think to change ordinances, I mean, what we're seeing happening on Main Street, not that hasn't been any ordinance changes yet, but I believe there will be. I believe they will change the Bike Week master plan. I believe they might enact some different ordinances. It starts with an interest in the commission in seeing something change. And then they direct staff to come up with recommendations. And then they might have a workshop, which will be a public meeting where the commission can discuss things outside of an actual commission meeting. So if we wanted code enforcement policies or ordinances to change in some way, we have to be ready to educate ourselves so we can ask the right questions. Then we have to get our commissioners interested to where somebody turns to Mr. Chisholm and says, I'd like, ask the mayor, and the mayor will ask Mr. Chisholm to prepare some kind of suggestions on A, B, and C. How can we do better? Maybe it'll go nowhere. Maybe they'll have a discussion and it's kind of, we can't do it for legal reasons, whatever. But then eventually, maybe they'll have a workshop and some new ordinances would come out of it. And that's how we can possibly adopt some of the tougher things that we see in neighboring cities. Other than that, we're going to kind of keep, and nothing I said, I hope, was bashing the code enforcement board.
I wasn't saying you. No, I wasn't making that comment, but I just want to,
I didn't want to see it pulled out of
their
their
city
hand.
board, where there's a lot of different city boards, and we're all trying to really be responsible and represent the interests of Daytona. And I feel like we need to try to be supportive, and I agree, part of being supportive is to be informed about what the issues are for those boards, so when we're struggling with one of those, we're well informed. And that's why, unfortunately, the meeting tomorrow is a conflict for me, but I'm aware of what the issues are tomorrow, and I know you'll be there, so you know my concerns. So just moving on, the lighting issues, have we done anything after dark to go up and down? It's not just on Main Street, and it's not just on A1A, but I walk a lot, and down the side streets are scary. And that's where, when we walked home from the Peabody the other night, just coming down, was it Grandview we came down?
Yeah.
Yeah, we came down Grandview from Peabody to Main Street, and it's pitch dark.
May I then tell you about our lighting? And this goes back to the question of, don't we have an advocate or somebody? And the answer is absolutely. The Public Works has a person who handles the streets and the street lights, and that comes out of the traffic division over at Public Works. And they have one or two people at any given time who are out on the streets every day, every night, and they look. Their assignment is to see where the lights are out. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to get up there and fix it that day, but they're actually proactively out there. And I can't tell you that they're down every little street, and it still, requires us all to call it in, but call it in to Public Works. That is where they should be helping you. And also, it is incumbent upon us when it's an FPL or other agencies who happen to have something to do with the lighting. We actually communicate that to those agencies. They know who to call, who to contact, and let them know what the problem is. So the ball should not get dropped once they have the information. It should be going to these other agencies, and we are asking them to fix it.
On FPL website, they do have a streetlight report a problem.
Right.
Place.
Right. You can go directly there, but the city will take that information and get it directly to who needs to get that information.
So I'm going to make one more comment on lighting, because I walk to a lot of meetings over here, which means I walk across the bridge. And right now, and again, it may be results of the hurricane, and I'm sure some of it is Florida Power and Light, but the lighting from the bottom of the bridge, ISB, when you get to the peninsula is horrendous. And I mean, I'm walking on ISB. I should have plenty of light. I should not be worried about huge pockets of darkness when I walk between businesses. And it is that old, I mean, it looks like an old truck light parking. I shouldn't criticize truck parking lots, but I mean, it's very industrial. And we just really need to do something. I'm just going to ask you to pass that on, because right now that lighting is extremely insufficient. And it isn't safe. And I'm pretty independent. Things don't freak me out a whole lot, but even that was concerning to me the other night when I walked home. Let me see, I had one or two more things. Oh, I'm just going to make a comment on grandfather clauses. I feel that grandfather clauses they are self-defeating. When you identify an issue that you think it's a problem and you want to fix it, you don't allow all the people that are doing it wrong to continue doing it wrong indefinitely by grandfather clausing them in. It's one thing if you're asking for things to be upgraded. You give people a time frame, like, okay, this isn't acceptable anymore. You have 6 months or you have a year to bring yourself up to code or up to what our expectations are. But I mean, as we move forward and make recommendations and whoever it is that we're dealing with, I think people need to maybe kind of review. When you say something's grandfathered, then you're just allowing whatever the problem was to continue indefinitely. So, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, I guess all the bases were covered. The only base I can cover, and I'm definitely involved in the lighting because I'm changing all the lighting in all my businesses, my properties. But I just want to say that, you said you're from North Miami.
I was Public Works.
Public Works. I have properties in Miami, and the city of Miami right now, city of Hollywood, city of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, they're all getting approached by companies that are, you're shaking your head, so you know what I'm talking about. There's companies, LED companies, that are coming and approaching. I'm doing it with the company because, and I'll tell you the concept, and I hope they come to the city, and I hope the city, it's worth it for the city. Companies coming in and saying, we've changed all the lights in the city. The difference in the electrical bill, the end of the month, they get it.
Yep.
They get it. And I'll tell you guys what the advantage is. Daytona 2000, I own it. Just to change the LED lights inside is almost $53,000. Wow. Okay? So my choice was pay $53,000 that I did, or go with the company. And then when the company showed up, I'm doing some other properties where they're paying for it. They're paying for all the conversion, everything LED. And the difference in lighting, the savings, they get it at the end of the month. They're doing it with North Miami. They're doing it with Bal Harbor, Surfside, South Beach, Hollywood. And I know because the city of Bal Harbor had to come and send us letter, property owners telling us, what do you think about this, the city and this and this? And they don't have to ask us. But what they're doing is changing everything to LED. Now, Amy, you were talking about 400 watts.
That's what Big said.
Let me tell you something. I had in front of my buildings right now, and that's the next step we're changing, is 400 lights. Let me tell you what, you can fry eggs within 5 seconds on that. Believe me, that is not. But they have a conversion kit to have as much lighting in LED as a 400 metal highlight. As metal highlight.
I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, but what the secret to LED is, it's all low voltage. It's 12 volt. You can take the wire and bite on it, and nothing is going to happen to it. I know that I talked to the city many years ago about changing to LED, but it was a lot of money at that time. Now the LED industry just went down as far as the cost. And I know that there's companies that are going to approach the city. I don't have any idea where or when or which company, but I know a lot of the companies in the South. I can tell you that Bal Harbor and South Beach, I got property in both locations in Hollywood.
Village, they did that on the causeway and all.
Everything, the bridges, everything is LED. It's not costing 1 penny to the city, not 1 penny. The company is paying everything. The city don't even have to do anything. There's no disturbance at all. And what the difference is, sign the contract that for next 10 years, whatever the difference you're saving comes to us. It's worth it for them, and it's worth it for the city.
And it gets done.
Let me tell you what. I wish we knew we were going to talk about this. I would have brought a picture. But all you got to do is go to Ball Harbor and look at night. It looks like daytime, and it's low voltage.
Yeah.
That's what the secret about LED. That's what. And I know they're talking about Main Street. I talked to John Albright, and I talked to Tony. I talked to a lot of the people that are on the city, beach, county, whatever you want to call it, that board. I don't think they decided the name yet, but that board. I told them. I said, a lot of people are going to bring out the lighting. You guys need to look in at, some kind of money from the county or from the state. There's a lot. I applied for the state, and the state said that they're at this time no, but I know somebody else that applied after me, and they got it. So the state has money to change. Even FPNL has money, funds, because it's better off for them to have LED than have conventional lighting. So as far as the lighting, it's not. You don't have to be a genius, but again, the city has to be willing to accept whatever the company is going to offer. And Mr. Berger, I know you know what I'm talking about because it's been around for a while now. Companies are coming in and offering to do everything for free, and whatever the difference is, I know that the 10 years they're going to make the money. They're going to make the money, whatever they're going to invest in the thing. So, an example like the city parking. They put the big square LEDs now. I'm sorry. Here, perfect example. Here we go. 7-Eleven Corporation pays for the LEDs, and the individual property owner pays every month for those LEDs that are changed by the corporation of 7-Eleven. I know that because next door to me is a 7-Eleven, and the corporation goes to 7-Eleven Corporation goes and changes to all the lights, and then they incorporate it in the price that the licensee, the person that owns that 7-Eleven, every month pays to 7-Eleven, and you should see it's bright. I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about when it comes to LED. And again, one more point I want to make with you is that the LED is approved not to disturb the turtles.
Good.
Because it's low voltage, and you can control the direction of the LEDs. So as far as the lighting, we got to get together and just say, do it. When they have, it's a big cost. If the city does it, it's a big cost. I can tell. I know it's a big cost. But when companies approach and gives a chance to the city to say, we'll do it and we'll pay, and just imagine Main Street with LEDs.
I mean, it's great that to me, the electricity reduction is.
Oh my God, it's.
I do like Mike made an important point about light shining in people's windows when they're trying to sleep. It's not just disruptive to sea turtles. There are other living creatures that can be disrupted if we're not careful.
The first point you made about the cost of drop, I can tell you. Yeah. I don't want to give numbers, but I used to be this good customer on Daytona 2000 for FPNL. When I put LEDs, it went down over 30-some%.
Yeah.
And the heat inside the store, not only the heat, but the AC unit is not cranking all the time because there's less. I mean, the overall picture is pretty good. So as far as the lighting, now as far as the code enforcement, I just want to make some comments. And again, we were talking earlier about code enforcement. A few years ago, the people that were in code enforcement wrote down some really strict things. And I want to come back to Amy because she said about the colors of the building. I guess, I don't know how long you've been here, Amy, but a few years ago there used to be a lady named Suzanne Q. I don't know if everybody remembers her. She was the director of, she was in his position. And let me tell you, she came from New York. I have nothing against New York. I lived in New York. But she had a very strict book. It's either pink, turquoise, or lavender. And it was all from the 30s and 20s and 30s and 40s. And you could not put a building on A1A if it was not part of her chart. Unfortunately, she never wanted to change. It was only one direction. She never wanted to and have an open mind. And all the buildings on A1A were pink, turquoise, and lavenders. And with the years, it was hard for the business people to go to the city and says, look, we got to change we're tired of these colors. We're tired of the pink. We're tired of the lavender. We're tired of, and the same thing in Miami. I don't know if you remember. Miami was all pink and turquoise, and the people made some noise and it changed. The thing about Beachside is every property owner wants to have his own identity, and that his identity is part of the colors. When you talk to people and you tell them, look, I'm in this thing, okay, first thing to tell you is the colors of the building. So when Mr. Berger said that, it's part of the community, the different colors of the buildings, and, if you put 3 buildings all white next to each other, exactly. So that's why, and believe me, look, I was the president of the Beachside Merchant Association for many years, and we were strict about, about many things on the, and then you just have to go with the program and open your mind and say, and we used to go against the city because the city was on a straight line. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. You can't do this. And it took us a long time to open the city's channels. And we never had as many open channels as we do now with the city. Like I said, I don't know how long people have been here, but if you go back and look at the minutes of city commissions, believe me, many times the commission would not even give a chance to people to talk. It was at a point where business people were not even interested of dealing with the city anymore because they were. But now the channels are open. It's easy to have access to Mr. Berger. It's easy to have access to certain people at the city as of before. Even if there was not that glass counter, at the front here, it was still hard to get in touch with people and talk to them. So, but what I'm trying to do is we did a lot of progress in this town. We still have a lot of work to do. But, it's like I always said, and I keep saying it for the past 27 years, we got to stop pointing the finger and all work together. We got to work together because this is our community. This is, he said something. He said, every business person is here to make it profitable. That's the number one because at the end of the month, trust me, sir, when I go to the bank and they tell me, pay the mortgage on all these properties, I tell them, I said, it was, no. It's so when you're in business on an area that is very seasonal and it's very, very, very tough, and now the worst part we're having now is that, Amy is going to make some comments, everybody's going to make some comments, the buildings are, falling down, I never, in 29 years that I've been in this town, I never closed the store. My store has been closed more than this time around. This time around. Not only because of the hurricane, because the insurance are dragging their feet. It's hard to find. And I got my own contractor for 20 years. He does everything for me. But he tells me he applies for the permits, not a problem. Works with the city, not a problem. But the issue is I can't even let my employees go inside the store until the insurance says done. And that is a big thing. And people around, believe me, the Speedway is calling and saying, Gilbert, you've never been closed this long. How come you closed? Well, we don't have no choice. So what we have to do is we have to be understanding to our neighbors. We have to understand that, across the street, there's a pizza place that the roof blew up, and I know the guy, and the guy comes crying. He says, my insurance. I said, believe me, I'm in the same boat. So we can't keep pointing the finger of, that's why some cities give you 60 days or 90 days with no permit to fix things. Am I right? 60 days or, I know Ormond, for after the hurricane. They allow 60 days or 90 days, no permit fees, no nothing. Take your time, finish with the insurance, and then fix up the place. That's why we have a lot of the businesses on A1A that are, and I know every single owner, and believe me, I can tell you all the one their stores, and every single one of them are hurting because they're dealing with the insurances. We got Oktoberfest. We can't afford to lose one event in this town, and we have no choice. So I'm talking for the business people. I'm talking for myself. It's tough on Beachside. You know the old sayings, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Not anymore. If you can make it in Daytona, you can make it anywhere. There you go. Now I speak my mind out. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Oh, one more comment. I want to make one more comment. Please. I want to make one more comment. I know Amy's not going to like. I know Amy doesn't want to hear this.
I might want to comment too then.
No. I just want to make a. You remember last meeting we were talking about the tattoo. That is going to be a chain reaction. As soon as these people get approved, there's going to be other people. Remember? And we said it was case by case. Well, just to let you guys know, there's already There's already a lot of people that are applying, are coming out of the blues to open tattoo shops. Remember when I said, Mr. Newman said, it's
So you're a psychic.
no, I'm not a psychic, Amy. Not at all. I just want to let you know, Amy, because you made comment last time. Remember when Mr. Newman says we do by case, and you said, well, we got to get small business. My point is not I'm psychic or I'm not any better than anybody, Amy. I'm not. What I'm trying to tell you is that we have to, you know the old sayings, we have to know what we want to do when we grow up. The city had a vision for families for many years. And the reaction is going to happen now. And believe me, it's all going to go in front of the commission. It's all first reading, second reading. But the point I'm trying to make is we should go forward, not backwards. All the certain licenses that were taken off the beach side for certain businesses were to make the beach side family friendly. Family.
You can't put an art studio on.
You can't put a grocery store.
I guess I'm not
We
talking.
need to reopen the meeting
Yeah.
if we're going to have this discussion.
Let's
Okay, well, okay, not a problem. Yeah, let's call it not a problem. This meeting is adjourned.